Sounds like a menu item that I want to order.
Yeah. I wouldn't. Sounds disgusting. Hello and welcome to the Quackcast. This is the Drunkduck Quackcast. I'm Ozone Ocean, and with me is Tance and Bainzarine. Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so this week we're up to Quackcast number 619, and we're going to talk about AI. And how it's taking over everything, and it's going to ruin our lives and take our jobs, take our gerbs, and be a total prick. Is that what's going to happen with the AI? Do you think, Tance, it's just going to change everything, destroy the world?
Of course, it's going to implode the Earth, and we are going to be living on just asteroids, traveling through space from now on.
And I look forward to that. Well, we'll talk about that after we introduce the feature and the featured music. So, first up, we have the featured music, which was Meatware, which was a comic that Quai featured just the other day. So this music is... no, that's not the featured music. What am I talking about? For God's sake, AI has gone and screwed my brain. This is terrible. I've been infected. Okay, so the featured comic is American Pantheon, which I featured this week. And it's a really cool little comic, so I'll tell you about that now. Hello, I'm Ozone Ocean, and my feature for the week was American Pantheon. Let a super creepy cannibal Tom Waits take you on a surreal journey into the dark, twisty backwoods. See cryptids emerge from the blackness, obscure gods and angels going about their business in this weird world of North American strangeness. This is a surreal, slightly comical series of creepy stories strung together with a supernatural theme. It's all drawn with soft pencil in a very realistic style, so it has a very distinctive look to it. You won't confuse this with another comic very easily. It's a good-looking kind of work. It's quite nice. No colour to it, just pencil work, just line work, and the stories are held together with the same theme of the creepiness. But there's, so far, no common story overarching arc through the whole lot. It's just a weird, kind of fun, bizarre little experience. So I hope you like to read American Pantheon. And it's by Serge 19, and it's rated T for teen. So have a look at American Pantheon. And that was American Pantheon. Alright, so next up we have the featured music. Okay, now this is the featured music. Meatware, which was of course a comic that Quackcast featured just the other week. Right, so this music is grinding, red, churning, twisting, growling, processing, heavy, liquid, viscous, thick, fibrous, chunky, fatty, sinewy. A heavy electronic sound that gets you deep in your bones. So take it away, Gumballs, with the theme to Meatware. And that was the featured music, Meatware, which is a comic by The Jagged, and it's rated M for mature. It's rated M for meat. So get a bite of that. Get a big bloody bite of Meatware and see how you like it. Right, so, well, we're not going to talk about meatware, which is, I suppose, how would you describe the human component of a computer system would be meatware versus hardware, which is computer, or software, which is the code. So we're going to talk about AI, the evil artificial intelligence that lives inside the internet and is ruining everything. So AI is an interesting thing. Just a bunch of code. It's very simple programs, really. That there's a lot of code though, so it all kind of works together in different ways and simulates kind of intelligence. But when we say artificial intelligence, the artificial really isn't sort of thought about enough because it is incredibly artificial. It's nowhere near the complexity of the human mind and human creativity. It just sort of follows rote behaviors. And the human mind and the way we think also follows rote behaviors, but far more complex, and the connections are far more granular than what is possible at the moment with AI. So AI, yeah, it's simplistic. There's no intelligence involved in the way AI functions in any shape or form. It's purely, the old-fashioned things about they called it mechanical Turk. So the idea was like it simulates a kind of living intelligence by, you ask it simple questions and then it comes up with simple answers like, oh, am I going to be rich tomorrow? And it says, oh, it's a possibility. Those kind of things. So AI is just a much more complicated version of that. That's more tailored to the situation. So that sort of gives you a bit of a background of it. I mean, I know we look at Chat AI or Stable Diffusion, whatever, and we think, oh my god, wow, this is actual creativity. But it's not. It's just very, very complicated copy and paste from different things. It's just the real revolution that's happened with AI is it's much more context sensitive. It's able to go, okay, this matches to this. These two things fit together in a way that, humans think makes sense. So if I put this and this, then it sounds like a natural sentence because this is how it's been trained. If I put this image next to this image, this component and this component, it creates something that sort of looks contiguous. It looks like it fits because it's seen like 7 billion like drawings and paintings that all do that the same way. So you get a nice generic painting, you get a nice generic essay or whatever out of this thing.
In the end, it really comes down to math because everything in art basically subscribes to some kind of formula, and that goes for pretty much everything from visual arts, like how we draw a face, to how we write music, like a phrase of music, and definitely how we write a phrase of words like language. And if you feed it enough examples and have programmed it to extract the mathematical formulas by which these things are created, like, for example, the proportions between head and torso, for example, or, whatever, and how certain artists do it, because that's another thing, that they can train a model on a very specific artist's style. And there are prompts that people just type in an artist's name and then everything will come out in the style of this artist. So all of that, the consistency of things, even when we do this intuitively and without, parsing out the math does exist in it, and that's what the AI does. It doesn't store, for example, the image that you feed it, but it does store the mathematical information of the image. So it takes a math picture of the image, or the text, or the music, or what have you, and then it uses these equations to create something else, something similar, by just changing the variables in this equation, and that's how we get the generation of images and everything else. So that's the mechanic behind it. At least as far as I researched, that's the mechanic behind it. So in the end, what you have is a copy paste of things. It's just done in a much more abstracted way, and the copy pasting is of the formula, and then the machine just puts in a whole range of different variables, and that's why you get these generation, like bunches and bunches of images cranked out, and then you have to go through every image that is nonsense until you find one that makes more sense, because the artificial intelligence doesn't understand what it's creating, so it cannot correct itself.
Well, and just to further the whole mathematic thing, I mean, every time you create an image and you save it as like a JPEG or something like that, this can be seen as mathematics, that whole thing. So I don't know, when we say copy and paste, I mean, it is, in a lot of ways, it is literally copy and pasting from someone's work, because that work does exist as math. It's not like, it creates a mathematical version of it. That image is already rendered in maths every single time we save it. So, that mathematical data is your own. If you create an image, that's not that machine's. That's your mathematical data.
Yeah. And as soon as, like, the legal teams that are already going through litigation on, copyright issues and stuff, that it's already being litigated, if they understand this, and they are going to eventually say that, okay, that thing that you extract still is tantamount to the image. So it doesn't really matter if you store the image or if you cut, make a collage out of it or whatever. It's still copyright infringement, and it still needs permission to use this. So we are going to get there eventually, and hopefully sooner rather than later, but that really depends on how competent the lawyers are. So yeah, there's that.
I think of like 3D art and stuff like that, and how like I've been looking at that for the last year or so, and also animation. Particularly 3D animation, and I was stunned when I started doing 3D stuff how this is all created with math. The three axes of the height, the depth, like the height, the width, and the depth, and how a figure is modeled by like sort of a mesh, a virtual like chain mesh, and then the rotation of each part of the body. It's all math. You can see the angles being calculated as you sort of, you're having fun just moving it around on your computer. You're not punching in the equations, but you can see the equations working. This axis rotation, that axis rotation, and then similarly with the camera lenses, like that. This is all stuff that can be and is programmed into like a piece of software. The lighting as well. So the lighting, obviously, the height of the camera, that's very easy. And again, the type of lenses, which can create these really dramatic effects or moody effects or whatever effect you want. Like, I can easily see an AI that's more editable, I guess, if that was a word, but you know what I mean. after the fact. Like if you get a result that's not quite right, you maybe want to center parts of the image, or you want to rotate it a little bit, or change the camera lens. Like I haven't tried Chat GPT yet. I'm curious to try it out, but I know it can do a lot that can then be edited. Like it writes you a story. I haven't, like I said, I haven't tried it yet. I want to like write you something. You could easily take that and edit it yourself, or get the AI to edit it. Like I had like 5 different thoughts in what I just said, but it's fascinating, and I wonder what parts of that will be copyrightable. Like like in 3D art, like the underlying math. Sorry, that's good.
Do you mean chat? What parts of that will be copyrightable?
Either one. Like you do 3D art and you own whatever images you create, and you can even resell models that you make, but you cannot sell the underlying thing that was not created by you. The parameters of that model or whatever.
I think that you also cannot copyright the output yet, at least. Like 3D, what am I saying? AI created art is not copyrightable, I think, yet.
Right.
Because again, it is generic, blah blah blah, and all of that. I mean, it is the field in terms of copyright and what is copyright right now regarding AI generators is very nebulous, and nobody really knows where the chips are going to fall. What is, in my opinion at least, and having the experience I have had through legislation and how the law works and stuff, they are going to eventually pass down how the technology works, because nobody understands how the technology works just yet. It's like magic box creates art, and that's it.
Exactly.
Once we demystify the magic box and how it works, eventually you are going to have immediate legislation regulating it on copyright and compensation and what have you. Like, this is the wild west era of AI generators, but it's not going to last very long, I don't think.
No, it won't. I mean, especially when you have giant corporations and giant big money interests who own plenty of images and plenty of things that they're not going to want to allow to be used for free. Funny enough, this will be a very quick tangent just for you, Tens. I saw a video of one of the big Star Wars YouTubers said he used Chat GPT to write a new sequel trilogy. And I haven't been able to watch his video yet, but I'm fascinated to see what he came up with.
I'm going to watch that just to see if the machine was better at it than the human. I wouldn't be surprised.
By random chance, it will be probably.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, in the end, I think that right now the big discourse is misaligned, in the sense that you have these tech bros saying, "Oh, now I can be an artist, and artists can go F themselves, and I can finally, take a huge steaming dump on those people that are more talented than me, and watch them cry and stuff like that." But that is really not important, because these guys are trash, and they are going to stay trash, and no matter what they do, they are never going to be relevant in this particular disruptive situation. They are just like the bottom feeders that are having their fun now while they can, without really much consequence. But the biggest issue, again, this is all my opinion, right? Nothing more, nothing less. What the issue that we should be really concerned about is that we are creating mass production on something that shouldn't be mass produced. And mass production means by default low quality and no attention to the basic elements of what art should be, which is it should be like it should create emotions in someone, it should make you think, it should make you inspired to do things. Like art has inspired people for ages. It has sparked whole movements. Take
good point.
propaganda on the other hand. It has been used to control the masses. All of that was like the huge impact of art in everyday life. And now what are you going to have? Some kind of generic milquetoast thing that does nothing, absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when someone does something cool and innovative, you'll have, like, you already have imitators, but like just imagine a world where you suddenly have 500 soulless imitations of that
Yeah.
one cool thing that's cranked out by anyone.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
the crap will still be crap, but it might be good enough to be released and make money and have a lot of people look at it, have an influence and all that.
Yeah.
well, it's like what Tance said in the Quackcast video we just did, the Patreon video. The idea that if their source of fuel dries up, their artwork that it scrapes from, and if they're not allowed to use that anymore, like they shouldn't have been in the first place. But say if that finally does finish up, then they're only allowed to create from what they've already got, which means they'll eventually stop innovating. They'll, like, artistically, they won't be able to create anything new or novel. It will become more derivative and more pastiche because it doesn't have the ability within it to create stuff that really is novel. It's not, people imagine like the whole the thing, there's the old idea of put a million infinite monkeys in a room and they'll eventually write Shakespeare. Well, maybe they would, but it'll just be Shakespeare. We've already got Shakespeare. We don't need a million monkeys to keep making Shakespeare.
Yeah.
So
and
that's pretty much
the other
what you've
thing,
got.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing is that you have this our society has just given into this whole overproduction, overconsumption, maximization of profit. Let's do everything real cheap and profit, maximize the margin of profit, and everything comes down to profit, to a point that is pathological, because nobody is saying that you shouldn't profit from your work. Everybody needs to do that to survive. But there's it's completely different to try to find ways to maximize the profit of your profit. Like, you're already making more than enough profit. And now you're trying to maximize profit at the expense of culture, at the expense of civilization, at the expense of having humans engage in something that is extremely important psychologically. I mean, people that are deprived of art, and this is going to deprive us of art, because it's not going to be art, it's going to be placeholders, symbolic representations of art. So you're not going to have actual art. It's not going to be giving you anything. Pretty much like when you have a hamburger, you might like it, but if you keep eating it, assuming that you don't go overboard with calories, you are going to have problems because it has nothing nutritious in it. So the same goes for art. And let's take something else again. Like, this is my sort of quasi rant. Please interrupt me, guys, if you want.
No, it's good.
So we have fast fashion, right? Fast fashion is super cheap. and it survives on an impoverished populace that needs super cheap clothes to clothe themselves. But what is the quality of these things? It is badly tailored. It never fits very well, and it is from really cheap and bottom tier materials that aren't good for the body, aren't good for the skin, all of that. And then we compare how clothes were before, where you created, like you had clothes that you kept for a good few years because they were so expensive. But those things were tailor-made. They were created to be functional for you specifically. And that is a completely different experience than what we have right now. And I'm not even going into the issue that in order to have fast fashion, you have to have really impoverished countries where you have the sweatshops where they make it, because it's not making itself, even with the machines. So eventually, I guess you are going to have a job where your job will be to create models of AI generators of art, and your job will be to create a model with a specific style, and you have to, as an artist, create the initial works that will train it, and that could be a job, I expect, highly paid. But how many people will be able to do that?
Yeah.
And all of that.
And people will need clothes and food always, of course. But I think Bravo commented on your news post that when no one has any money to buy this stuff, they're just destroying themselves.
Yeah.
We already see that going on. I've heard stories about sort of intercompany memos at I don't want to say which car manufacturer because I don't remember, but some car manufacturer wanted their employees to drive their vehicles. Like, why is no one driving a blank, whatever it was? And multiple employees wrote back that, well, pay us more and we'll be able to afford to buy it, and that shut it down completely. Shut down the letter writing, not the company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I expect that they did not get that raise in order to drive the cars, right?
In that instance, I have no idea. Overall, I think here and there you see signs of improvement. This is off the AI topic, obviously a little bit, but you do see here and there the strength of unions improving and wages going up and stuff like that. And then you see the other side of it as well. So it's not a sure thing where we're going to go, will it go downhill or will we figure it out? But I see signs of both personally. It's good and bad, but
yeah, I think that at some point this catatonic race to mass production and inhuman, and that's why you want the AI, because it's not human, and in human production of items to be consumed, like the example I used for the article, which is a K-pop band, all-girl band, I think it's all-girl, that is completely AI generated. They are not real humans, but they act as a human band, and the company that does this says, and have the quote in there, that because humans struggle with physical limitations and stress and burnout, and now we can just forgo all that, and they will just keep producing and producing and producing. And
but aren't they actually based on real humans to do the movements and stuff like that? I mean, the dances.
Yeah, but what they do is that they sort of have these unnamed grant level artists to sort of quote unquote wear the skin. So it is projected onto them, but not for everything, only for interaction with the fans, so live interaction, and only for, I think, some initial movements and stuff, and then everything else is computer generated. Like they don't always have these humans that wear the skins.
And the voices, is that actually sung by a bunch of real singers, or is
No,
that AI
deep
generated?
fake technology.
Wow.
Deep
So it
fake
could
to
be
the
any
script.
number of vocalists or just
Mhm.
literally a computer thing to
Yeah.
put in the vocals. Wow.
Generic K-pop voices. That's it.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. Yeah, so unnoticeable. And people like it, I take it. I don't know anything about K-pop really, but
Personally, I haven't really seen it be that popular, and I have read a few articles where K-pop fans that are often very rabid fans, in my opinion, but anyway, are saying that this is going a little bit too far. They are starting to get creeped out,
yeah.
but I'm pretty sure that they do have a following, and it is making money for the company. Absolutely, that's why BBC had a whole piece on them.
Yeah,
Well, I
and then you
mean,
just think of what about the future? Yeah, going forward,
Mm.
will there be more and more and
it's
more
it's not
sophisticated?
it's not essentially a new thing, because we had Vocaloids for, maybe like over 10 years now, maybe 15 years or something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
the Vocaloid was basically just a crude version of that, like an animated human. And
Hmm.
this is what these are. These are basically animations. That was an animation.
Mm-hmm.
And they became stars as if they were real people.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
just
that's
an
the
evolution
premise.
of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it.
And
And
well, I was just
mm-hmm.
going to think, like back in the 90s, we had this excellent animation I really recommend to people, Macross Plus. Coolest, like, air dogfighting ever in that, like these jet fighters.
Yeah.
But key to the story is this creature called Sharon Apple, who is an AI and a performer, a musical performer. So its physical form is actually, a computer server that gets taken from here to there. But people see this I don't know, this person who they think is a human, and it's just this animated thing. And they pretend that there is this real person who is Sharon Apple, who kind of just accompanies this AI thing. But it's an all an AI. All its music is an AI. So yeah, it was envisioned way back in the 90s, like an AI could replace humans and become a performer in its own right. So anyway, so Tance, sorry, go on.
No, I absolutely what you are saying. And the thing is, the point and the problem, and why I wrote the article is not the tech. It's not the tech. Like the tech can be absolutely super useful to a whole variety of things, and it can improve the quality of work, like the work situation that we have, even as artists and as performers, what have everything. But the thing is that the way it is being used to dehumanize, deculturize, and generally um, debase society in very significant ways.
Mm.
And yeah, what I see is, and the problem isn't that, oh, okay, we're going to have this inflow, like this tsunami of AI generated art everywhere. The thing is that you are going to have young people that this is all they're going to know, and the problem isn't that this is all they're going to know, is that they will have very little other stimulation, and that creates a lot of problems mentally. And
Right.
they're going to have very little stimulation culturally speaking as well. They are basically, you are training society to produce uneducated, uncultured, and inspired drones. And then that might sound very extreme, but just see how much people can tell the difference between, for example, um, the artistic value of a very generic trap song. And I'm not talking the original trap songs. I'm talking the ones that get mass produced now because it's super easy to produce and doesn't require talent. And the very unique songs that were created when you were required to have melody to call
What's a trap
something a
song?
song. What's a trap song?
Yeah.
Google it. It is a category of rap music that basically is rhythm and someone mumbling into the microphone, and that's it. And that's trap, apparently. I mean, it's not that, but that's what it's come down to. And usually, again, you have also very crass and crude um, lyrics that um, glorify misogyny, gun running, human trafficking, and what have you. I mean, it's very, very low tier
Right.
trap. And if you guys like trap, I'm sorry, but I'm starting. I'm going to die on this hill. It's crap.
Oh no, I like human trafficking. That's what I like to do.
Yeah, no, I was also like, if anyone is listening to us, um, yeah, people cannot tell the difference on what is culture and what is not culture, and there is a very specific objective difference, and we could talk about that on some other uh, cast. Um, but in general, when you are taught not to think and to just consume and consume and consume, this is where you're going to end up, like glorifying this talentless smack that tells you that you should have many bitches and be like Andrew Tate. So, yeah,
Yeah, well,
this is where we're at.
I mean,
For a
one of the
second,
points.
I thought you said many pizzas like Andrew Tate. That's what it sounded like.
Yeah, he has
Many
way
people
too
I
many.
can stand behind.
It sounded good. Yeah, I like that at first. But yeah, I see what you mean. Sorry, Oz.
Oh, I can't remember what I was going to say now, you bastard. With your many
I think
pizzas.
it's a great point. And now I'm thinking about pizza. I gotta
Oh.
stop talking about it. Gotta order
Okay,
one.
so what I was going to think about was, all right, so there's also an old idea of, say, we have pop music, and we've got mainstream consumer level stuff. That's not culture. This is culture. This Shakespeare, this opera. This is culture. So Chance isn't doing that. This is not what you're doing. What to clarify what Chance is talking about, Chance isn't saying like all popular stuff is basically McDonald's level crap. And whatever. Chance is saying that this is stuff that is generic. It's devoid of any real human creativity and innovation. It's just like a really low level pastiche of this and this. Oh, you like bitches? You like cars? Then this is a great piece of artwork here. It's a Ferrari with a bikini woman on it. It's taking the Lego and stacking it into a format, and then now you've got a computer that automatically does that stacking. And that's all it does. It rearranges these 5 blocks in 50 different combinations, and that isn't culture, because that's just a rearranged thing. That's just something made purely to consume. So I think, isn't that what you're saying? It's just like it's a generic thing being pumped out, devoid of like a person coming along and saying, "Oh, hang on, yeah, the woman on the Ferrari, but make her wear a blue bikini and actually give her fairy wings." That's where culture comes in. A bit of more creativity, a bit of innovation.
Well, they could argue that you can, type in those prompts and the AI is going to give you this fairy winged blue bikini variation. But it goes far beyond that, and it might be really hard to put your finger on it. But um, the ability to see variety, and when I'm talking about variety, I don't just mean, oh, here are 1,000 variations of this same thing. If you see, the AI generators tend to crank out the same style and the same approach to things because it is trained to get out this particular approach. And the capacity to be exposed to a wide variety of different artistic approaches all the time or as frequently as possible is really good for the brain. And I might even just pull out the research on what variety does. And the problem with with fast art, just like fast fashion and just like pretty much everything else that is completely mass produced, is that when you are used to seeing a certain thing that is basically the same with some variations, okay, now we have it in a bikini and now we will have it in a maxi dress and now we're going to have it in wings and now it's going to be green and next time it's going to be blue, but it's the same thing, is that you basically train your brain to expect only this thing in this category. And when that happens, means that you eventually are going to stagnate imagination. And that's the issue. That's the big problem. Because without imagination, we are not going to be able to push the frontiers forward, not only in art and culture, but in a lot of other things, like, for example, philosophical movements or political movements or, what have you. All of these hinge on the ability of the human mind to ask for something new and have the being taught that there are always other things out there. That okay, you have this, but what about something else? And when you tell the brain, oh, that something else is the same thing, repackaged as this, then you get stagnation.
Well, and you also take away those creative tools and the skills of people in order to be able to do creation, not just in the brain. They're really the thing. I remember back when I was in art school back in the 90s. So first I trained in a really good art school where, there'd been artists training there for decades. But we learned very practical skills, and we were trained in a very kind of old-fashioned way. So we learned all these different methods of art creation, printmaking and drawing, and not only the techniques, but also the abilities. So, they train you in figure drawing and stuff like that, drawing from life and sculpture and all that kind of stuff. And it was like enormously helpful. You get exposed to a lot of different techniques and different artists. It was amazing. Then I went to university after that to study art and do my BA in art and design. And it was a completely different thing because they had a different philosophy back then. So they were more on the idea of conceptual art. So the concept was more important than the physical object. So you had a lot of these people being sort of told, like, okay, so here's a theory and this theory and this theory, and you'll create something sort of to express that theory. So they were sort of taught, from my point of view, in the wrong way. Really, what you really should be doing is teach people the physical tools and the abilities to be able to create, and then give them free rein to express their concepts, come up with their concepts. But these poor people at the university were only taught to, okay, so there's your concept. Now you've got your concept. Now how do you want to produce it? And these poor bastards would go, oh, yeah, I want to make this in glass, or I want to make this in ceramic. How do I do that? And then they'd have to learn how to use the tools afterwards. and they would, be able to do that, but in a very basic way. They would never get very, very good facility to do it because they wouldn't know what tools to use because they'd never been exposed in the beginning to all the different methods. So they'd have like limited kind of options available to them, and so then they'd just pick whatever was exciting or interesting enough to them that they were able to conceive, but it would be from a limited set of things, and then they'd never achieve like expert ability in these tools.
Mm-hmm.
So they'd be limited all the way down the line. And I think that's really what is happening to people in a lot of ways. We're denying them the ability to learn these practical skills that they need to do to create, not just, in their ability to think. Like with music, some of these idiots who think, oh wow, I'm a musician, I'm a DJ, look at this, I can mix this, and they have these tools. And yeah, it's pretty fun kind of music they create, but it's incredibly limited. There's not much you can do. You hit the sides pretty quickly with this digital only music creation when you're working with samples and all this kind of thing. If you don't know actually, chord progressions and different instruments and what they can all do, you're only limited to these digital versions. And again, that does what you were saying, Tance. It trains people to expect only a limited kind of things that are music. And a lot of electronic music is like that. It's
now that
limited.
you mentioned music, that's a great example because I remember, I don't remember unfortunately whose channel it was on YouTube, where they were sort of, these were expert musicians, like formally trained, and they were discussing not on the issue of AI generators. They were just discussing how certain methods of mass creating music is very problematic. And the biggest issue that they said is that, it is very disjointed. It is not correct the way that it should be in order to create a harmonic, melodic output. I don't really know how to say it because I don't know music. But the problem with that, and they made they displayed the original plus the corrected, because they sat down to just correct it, not create something new, just correct the output of. I think it was just pieced together by some kind of program, whatever. And the thing is that to my ear, that is very untrained, the corrected version was a lot more pleasant. And it made me happier for some reason to hear it. And I couldn't put my finger on what was corrected. I really couldn't. But the result, my brain was happier. And the point that I want to make with this is that when you are creating a whole class of quote unquote artists, whoever, like literature, visual arts, performers, singers, what have you, that are not trained to very specific elements that have been developed through the ages in terms of knowledge on how to do certain things, you are going to get really outputs like pieces full of errors, but nobody is trained to understand that this is full of errors. And then you're going to have young people growing up exposed to this, that they will learn that this is how it is, like the errors are correct. And on that, I have like another example. I was on Reddit, and for some reason, Reddit wants to keep shoving stable diffusion, like the subreddit stable diffusion, like in my feed. I have no idea. I'm not subscribed to it. But there was this guy that was super happy that they created this AI generated composition of two girls that were supposedly romantically involved. and they spent 8 hours tweaking it and stuff, and it was terrible. First of all, these girls had no chemistry with each other because one was looking at the horizon and the other one was looking at, I don't know, her boobs. It was completely like they had no interaction. These figures had no interaction. The proportions were off. The hands were really small, and the person was very proud because they had gone in and manually corrected the hands, and the hands were terrible. But they couldn't see it, and that's understandable that they couldn't see it. So I said, okay, you know what? Because you spent all this time and tried to go in and actually edit it, I'll tell you what is wrong with it. And I'm not even formally trained, and just made a list. Do this, do that. This is how hair should work. This is how clothes should work. Learn anatomy. Proportion of the hands should be like the hand shouldn't be the size of the person's chin. It should be completely different. And the guy was really happy. He said, "Oh, thank you. I'm going to go into that." They didn't understand that I basically told him, "Take up some art, learn some." So they are going to go and learn some art to be able to properly create AI art, and that's so sad and ironic.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's like the
Yeah.
music, Well, that really comes to the crux of the thing. It's the fact that this stuff, we're not like demonizing it and so, yeah, no one should have AI, we should just like burn it. It's the idea that it's not really a tool for everyone to be able to create art with. It's really powerful in the hands of an actual artist because they can use it as an assist to make themselves even better and to create. Like with the music, like if you could use it to, like, I don't know, quickly create some kind of random blah and get inspiration from in order to turn that into a great piece of music, then that's cool. Because come out with tunes like Baines, you're a musician, you'd know. Like,
I mean, yeah, like stuff like this in the hands of an actual artist or musician or whatever field it is can be very useful as a tool.
Or
like say, I was going to say when I do like a lot of graphic design work, I've got no idea what I want to create with the design. Like I come up with like okay, so I have to do a flyer with this and this and this. I have to do an ad with a bunch of products, and they have to all look good and interesting. I think, oh, what's the theme? How am I going to connect these things? I've got no idea how to do it. So what I do is I like stack all these things together, and I like go and make a coffee, and I think in my head, what is the theme I could do for this? And if I like stack them randomly enough, like then my brain can sort of think, oh, maybe I can connect them this way and this way and this way. And so the AI could really take on that role. Like, oh, I will just present you with a new kind of random connection of these things, and that will inspire you in order to go on and do something more. That kind of thing. Like use it as a basic tool like a primary tool instead of using it as like a tertiary tool, like this is finished work. No, this should only be a starting point to something good and real and human created.
Or you could just use it to do the actual groundwork, like for example, fill this area with grass in the proper perspective, for example. That could be a prompt.
Of course.
Instead of sitting down manually to create every single blade of grass, unless it's very specific and important. Or, for example, create the clothing and then tell the AI to put the pattern in, for example. That kind of thing.
And these are kind of tools that we already actually do use. Say if I want to do grass now in a picture, like the last week's Quackcast image for the Quackcast. I've got a bunch of grass there. I didn't draw every single blade. What I did was I created a special brush that in Photoshop that multiplies grass in a certain pattern. So when you draw and it's responds to pressure of my pen, it stacks grass in all kind of random ways, and it looks like kind of grass, which would take me forever to sort of sketch. But the brush does it itself because I've, made it do the right thing. So, AI is just can be a bit another step beyond that. So instead of like creating the brush, you just say.
And another thing would be like be inspired for angles. Like for example, especially when I have pages where basically they are endless heads talking, and it can be super boring. So I have to devise ways to make it visually interesting. And what I often do is that I randomly type in Google X, Y, Z, talking and looking really pissed off, for example. And what I get are often, stills from movies and stock photos and stuff like that. And some of these, most are junk, but some of these have like an angle that I hadn't thought of using, or they have like a perspective I hadn't thought of using, and then I use that in my like this. I draw them in this perspective, if that makes sense.
That's a good idea, yeah. Because naturally, when you're doing a panel and you're having characters interacting, you gravitate towards the very simple standard kind of poses and stuff like that. That's what we do because we can't store all these things in our head at the same time. So having some external inspiration really, really does help. Or we'll just come up with the same boring 5 angles that we normally use.
But even those, I mean, we could mix and match interestingly. But yeah, this is where AI could help in the sense that you could tell the AI, 2 people talking, random angles. Angles, not angles. Random angles.
Yeah.
And it would just generate like 100 pictures of people talking from every angle, and you just pick the one that you like as a guide, and then you recreate this in your panel instead of drawing it, not liking it, erasing it. This has happened to me, and it's really frustrating. Like, it's not working. I don't like it. Redo. Like, there goes this panel I was working on for an hour. So
that's why Pinky TA takes a year to make a page, because that just happens constantly. We've got 2 minutes left from our overlord Google. The AI is now telling us that we're limited. So yeah, the whole thing. So we're not saying like throw AI out. We're just saying, and it's not even a problem of AI. It's a problem of people and people trying to take advantage, and people trying to imagine that they've supplanted artists, but they haven't in any way, shape, or form. They're just using us and thinking then they can throw us away.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's never the tech's fault. It's never the issue with technology. Like, it's not the issue of the knife that you have gone and stabbed someone with it. We're not going to abolish knives, because how are you going to cut your bread? But it is a human problem, and not even a human problem. It is this particular organization of society's problem, in the sense that, let's all maximize profit like there's no tomorrow, but for a very specific style of maximizing profit that throws everybody else under the bus, and not just artists. Like, imagine who is going to run the prompts? Not you. It's going to be a sweatshop of prompt making. No.
It is.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So it's not a case of welcome to our new overlords, the AI. It's welcome to our new overlords, the CEOs
Humans.
and these the tech
new boss, same as the old boss.
Exactly. Oh, bye in this dystopian.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Beep beep.